Good morning, friends, and welcome to a Hasty Podcast. I'm your host, Weston Hasty, and this is a Hasty Podcast. It's sip my coffee time. Hold on. That's just the way we start things here on a Hasty Podcast, with a fat sip of coffee, because I know once I get to talking and yapping, I'm not going to take another sip for a hot second, so we got to do it now while we still can. Sip that coffee. I hope it's morning for you guys. Maybe you're listening in the afternoon, the evening, the crack of midnight. I understand the crack of dawn, right? Like, that's the first time light just cracks over the horizon. Is there, like, a crack of dusk? Like, the very moment all natural sunlight from the sun itself is just not cracking over the horizon? Like, there's still gonna be, like, light in the atmosphere reflecting and refracting and bouncing and all that, but that's the same thing for dawn, too. Is there a crack of shadows? I like that. Actually, I like that as a name to, like, a movie or an album. Or a crack of shadows. Actually, that sounds like the subtitle to a really epic RPG video game, right? Like, the first title name would be something like super exotic, fey sounding. It'd be like Gorbendorf, the Crack of Shadows. Maybe not Gorbendorf. Maybe that doesn't have the level of epic that we're looking for. Well, anyway, is there such a thing as a crack of shadows? Let me know. I would like to know. I could Google it. I could look this up. But I'm going to let the mystery just exist for a bit longer so that you can all ponder upon it yourselves as well. So if you listen to the most recent episode of a Hasty Podcast yesterday or the other day, or however these are being released now, because nothing is real and everything's made up. If you listen to the most recent one that isn't this one, we're getting back into doing a Hasty Podcast, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really have any topics for today's episode. So a part of me getting back into a Hasty Podcast is also getting back onto the Patreon, which I need to completely revamp, because the last time that I was active on Patreon looked a little different. The site itself has been revamping, and I need to revamp, and that's just one more thing to add to my infinitely growing to-do list, as if you did listen to the last episode, you may know that I don't remember how I described this. I've taken on a second job. I have two jobs, two actually, like, I'm not the boss, someone else is the boss jobs, not just like, oh, my creative hobbies type thing. I mean, like, literally, I have two jobs now, so I'm very busy, and I keep a lot of correspondence, emails, messages, and I can't keep track of what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and what time, day, or month it even is anyway. So that's a problem in and of itself. So anyway, I don't remember why I brought that up. The point is, the site has changed, and I need to revamp it and get back. Oh, my to-do list, right? Just add it to my infinitely growing to-do list. That's right. And as a result of me being just so incredibly busy, I don't have a topic for today's episode. But I don't normally have a topic for my Patreon podcast either. I have a Patreon exclusive podcast. It's super short, like 10-minute episodes, right? It's just a little extra bonus schmidgen. If you want a little extra bonus schmidgen of Hasty Podcast material, it exists over there on the Patreon. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. And it's called Weston Wednesdays, where I just talk about a random topic entirely, like literally onto the internet, and find a random topic generator, and I talk about whatever it is that comes up for roughly 10 minutes. We're gonna do that today for, like, just a normal regular episode, just to give you a taste of what that kind of, like, looks like, maybe, and also as just a warm-up for me, because I need to do that for Patreon. I don't know exactly what day this is coming out on, but as of recording, I need to record for Patreon. So I'm going to do that just for this episode. And then we'll probably go through like 3 or so topics. And then there'll be a bonus 4th topic that exists over on Patreon by the time this comes out. And you can check that out if you become a patron. Anyway, drum roll, please. Somebody out there. I need a drum roll if you're listening. Is there anybody out there? Give me a drum roll. I'm waiting. No, it's okay. I'll wait. Okay, drum roll. So, random top. I use this website called capitalizemytitle.com. Not sponsored in any way. They don't know I exist, but that's the one I've been using. The first topic that comes up: what is your favorite piece of technology that you own? I think that probably. That's an easy answer, but like it's so easy, I don't know if it should count. Like, I would probably just say literally my computer. I built it by hand, right? So it's mine in every sense of the word, right? I bought the parts, I put it together, I gave it life. It is my baby. I am its father. That was an experience that I've talked about in various places before, but I'll go over it again now. Is that, I bought the case and the parts and I assembled the thing together over the course of it took me 8 hours to build it. I was watching tutorials online, make sure I knew what the parts were, where they go, make sure I was doing things right. I definitely wasn't doing things right. Cords were going into the wrong places. Things didn't fit the way I thought I would. I didn't know what belonged to where. I probably improperly applied the thermal paste to the CPU, so Lord knows it's a ticking time bomb down there, let's be honest. I bought one or two parts that I ended up not needing. I think they were just fans. I for sure have a second CPU fan, but obviously I only have one CPU, so I don't have anywhere to put it. So I have an extra fan that still exists in a box that I keep, I think, under my bed. It's somewhere in case I ever want to swap out fans or whatever. I don't actually know if I wanted to swap that fan out, how to remove it. The thermal paste, how does one remove thermal paste from a seat? I think you have to remove that to get the fan out, because it's more or less glued to each other, right? Am I making, does that make sense? Or have I been using a computer that is improperly constructed for a period of many years at this point? How long ago was it that I built this computer? I was living in a different apartment entirely. So how long have I been here? How long was it? It's been 4 years, I think, since I last built this PC. It was in the before times. It was before COVID. So it's been 4 years and maybe some months or something. Are we on our way to this computer being 5 years old? That's amazing. My little baby's growing up. But anyway, I've got this fan, and I'd probably like to swap it out because actually I think it's the better fan of the two that I had, but I was dumb and didn't realize that that's what it was, and so I'd probably like to swap them out eventually at one point in time. But I have not. I have it. It exists. I talked about this last episode, that my GPU fell apart or whatever. It unplugged itself and my computer was shutting down and stuff. So that was a good reminder. That was my opportunity to open my computer up again and just appreciate the work that I put into this thing. That if you were an experienced PC builder, would have probably taken all of 5 minutes to do. Probably not. I remember watching, there's this other podcast that I listened to, called Trash Taste. I really got into their podcast back in the COVID days. The hosts are these three anime YouTubers, right? That I'd run into every now and again perusing the YouTube, and they launched a podcast together, and they're wild, they're crazy people. But they have this second channel or show that's their podcast After Dark or whatever that they host on Twitch, and they had the VOD, the recording of it, on YouTube, and I watched it because, again, I built my PC, so I wanted to watch them build their PCs. They had this sponsored episode or whatever where the three of them had a competition to see who could build a PC the fastest. So they were building PCs. So I was very keenly interested in watching that because at that point in time I had built my computer not even a year prior. So I remember watching that, and it made me feel a little bit better. Okay. One or two of them at least knew what they were doing, but one for sure, didn't. And I kind of feel better for being just wildly inept at building mine. Now, I don't think I took, or swapped that. I don't think they took nearly as long as I took to build mine, but at least they did have each other there for moral support and help. I was just on the floor in a dark room because I was doing this in the middle of the night because I'd worked all day. And I forget when I think I was working evenings at the time, I think. The way I remember, I think I worked until like 10:30 at night, and I wasn't home until like 11:30. So I'm like literally up at midnight until like the early hours of the morning building my computer. Maybe it wasn't that. Maybe I worked a middle shift. Maybe I was off work at like 7 and got home around 8. That sounds more reasonable, because I don't think I was literally up until 8 in the morning. But I was up real late working on that thing, watching videos on the internet, hoping that anything that I bought, any of the parts that I had, at least corresponded to the tutorials that I was watching. Anyway, I think that's my favorite piece of technology, is literally my computer. I put a lot of effort and work into it. It's a beast, or at least it was 5 years ago. Obviously, like, the GPU could probably be swapped out with something a bit more powerful. Maybe some of the fans are getting old, whatever. But, like, it's dope. I use it for everything. I'm a big nerd. I like to sit on my butt in an office chair and play, like, PC games and do my video editing and stuff. That's kind of, like, what I do. That's my hobby. I spend the most time outside of work and stuff probably on my computer. So, if it's a favorite technology, I guess it's my computer. Obviously, I feel like a lot of people would say that, though. If you're into tech at all, it's like computer, smartphone. I feel like it's a little bit of a cheap answer. I do have a smartwatch. I do like my smartwatch, but like it feels weird to call it my favorite thing, because I could easily go without it. I'm not wearing it right now, so it's like I kind of wear it when I go out or if I'm at work, because it can track like my health stuff, like how many steps I've taken. And then I like, being able to, especially at work, if I get like a text, I can just look at my wrist and see if it's important or not, like a text or an email, without having to drag my phone out. So that's kind of nice. I don't try to like answer things through my watch. I just use it as an updater. I would love to have like Google Glass back when that was a thing. Apple's got some new like headset that they're working on. It's like in beta or whatever. The techies were talking about it a couple months ago or whatever, and that looks wild. It's basically like a giant VR headset, but like it's for doing a bunch of random crazy stuff. But if you guys remember the Google Glass concept that came out years and years ago, like a decade or more ago, where it was like a piece of technology basically just on your glasses and would give you like a heads up display of like messages or whatever. I want that. I basically want a scouter from Dragon Ball Z on my face, giving me heads up texts and emails, and if it could give me a heads up display of like where I need to go, like a GPS, or like highlight people that I know and be like, this is your friend Tony from Facebook or whatever, then it's like, okay, cool. Like that is the level of technology that I want. That would be my favorite. If I could wear a heads up display on my face, that would be my favorite technology. I've wanted that forever, for years. I don't know why, but that's like, I basically want to be an android one day, right? I want to be a cyberpunk 2077 character with like just these Borg powers. I want to be able to heads up display, and I don't even know what else. I don't even know why. I don't need any of that stuff, but it's just a desire. I want this. I want this for my body. I think that answers that question pretty sufficiently. Let's generate a new topic, shall we? Do you always have to have the latest phone? Apparently the random topic generator is really going on about technology this morning. No, I definitely don't need to have the latest phone. The phone that I have now is like, when did I get you? I think the phone I have now is 3 or 4 years old. I think it's like 3, maybe 3. Or actually, was it a before COVID? When did I get this phone? Was it a before COVID era phone too? Wait, hang on. I've got the Galaxy S10. Hang on, where? I can't find my mouse. I have 3 monitors, and sometimes I can't find my mouse on my computer. God bless it. Samsung I'm typing. Galaxy. This is how I have to type in real reality. If you ever work in an office with me, always just talking to myself, just like Samsung Galaxy S10. Hang on, it's just showing me things I can buy. Hang on, release. I don't know why I didn't try to spell release date. March 8th, 2019. And we're past March in 2023. We're into October, right? So we're getting to the point where my phone is almost 4.5 years old. Like, that's pretty old for a smartphone. I mean, like, it's definitely doable, obviously. I'm still using I want a new phone, though. The screen on mine, it holds up, but it does get to the point where it's not It's a combination of like if you get like a little bit of water on the screen or a bit of sweat on the screen or something, but not much, right? Like if you're trying to type and your hands are just even vaguely sweaty, like if your hands are dry as a robot, like if I was made out of metal, it wouldn't be a problem. But if your hands decide to even have the vaguest audacity to like have a tiny bit of moisture on them, I just can't type. My screen just goes bananas. It doesn't want to type anything at all. You'll see it because I've got a thing on my phone where you can see where you've typed or tapped or swiped or whatever. It's like a little white circle that follows your finger around when you move it. I set that up on my phone because I sometimes record things on my phone. So obviously being able to see where you've tapped is really helpful. And I don't know, I just like having that exist. So anyway, if I'm typing and the screen just decides to like go bananas, I can see that white circle move where my fingers are not. So I can see what the screen thinks I'm tapping. And sometimes it'll get stuck in a spot and it won't just stay there. It'll like tap there. So I'll be like typing out a message to somebody. Like, sure, I'll meet you at 10. And I'll get like halfway through meet or something. Like I'll hit the T button. And then I'll see the circle just swipe over to the S and just start smashing on the S. And it'll just be like, sure, I'll meet just over and over and over again forever. And I'm like, the only way to get rid of it, right? You can try to like wipe the screen or whatever. You have to turn the screen off. You have to hit the power button and let the screen go black. Wipe the screen, turn it back on, delete all those zillion S's or whatever, and then continue typing and hope it just doesn't do it again. It's very irritating, and it happens a lot. Like, it happens often. So, like, it takes me forever to send messages. It drives me nuts. So I need a new phone. I do need a new phone. But I definitely don't need to have the latest phone. That being said, if I'm buying a new phone, I like to buy the latest phone at the time. I don't like buying used phones that someone else has been using that kind of like, because it's a phone. It's a little different now that it's a smartphone, right? So people aren't holding it up to their head. I always thought the idea of buying a used phone where someone's been like talking into it, spitting all over it, and it's been up against their face a lot. That's kind of gross. But then also like just the way people use their phones, like on the toilet. Look, I'm guilty of this too. People use their phones on the toilet. They don't wash their phones very often. Phones get kind of grody, kind of super gross. So buying used phones just kind of grosses me out. So I don't buy used phones. So I do like to buy new phones. Now that doesn't mean like you can buy a new phone that isn't necessarily the latest model. You can do that. But if I'm going to be buying a new phone, I kind of like to get the latest model of whatever it is I'm buying, because in my brain, it's probably going to last longer that way. Even if physically speaking, a previous generation or two previous generations of phone, new in the box, even though it would probably physically last just as long as a brand new current gen phone would, you have to worry about like software updates sometimes, and like what happens if I have stuff that goes incompatible down the line that I want to use. So there's stuff like my phone's, like I said, like 4.5 years old, and as far as any of the software, any of the apps that I use on it, everything's still within compatibility. But if I had when I bought this S10, if I had bought the S9 or 8 or whatever, right, and it was a 5.5 or 6.5 year phone, maybe there's stuff that wouldn't actually be compatible with the operating system at the time. I don't know. So my thinking is that it'll last the longest if I go ahead and bite the bullet and get a current gen phone when I get a new phone. But then I keep it for years. I don't know when I'm going to get a new phone. I want a new phone. I keep saying I want a new phone, but I still haven't. I've been saying I want a new phone for probably the last year. Sooner or later, the screen will give up, die, and collapse on me, and then I'll just be forced to do it. But yeah, I don't have to have the latest phone. But when I get a new phone, I buy the latest new phone. I think that makes sense. I feel like people probably do that. I'm going to generate a new random topic. Ooh, this one's kind of deep in a little bit. I'm not sure what the answer is going to be. The question is, what is your dream job? I don't know. I'm not the pickiest person in the world. I have a full-time job currently in the food service industry. I kind of don't ever want to do anything in the food service industry ever again. Like when I leave this position in the food service industry, right, I'm not going to ever seek another position in the food service industry. The only exception being, which is a little bit different because then you'd be a business owner, I wouldn't mind opening one day in the future, like my own sub shop. I have a name for it too. I would call it Hasty Subs, right? Kind of plays into that like Jimmy John's Freaky Fast thing, right? Where you're like making stuff fast. Hasty Subs. It's like subs so hasty you'll freak. Steal it. It's just stealing their line. But I like that. My flagship sandwich, which would probably be some kind of club sandwich, like 3 or 4 different varieties of meat. You got your ham and your turkey, and I'd probably throw pepperoni on there. I love pepperoni. And I don't know, some chicken, because I love chicken, I love pepperoni, so I'll put those 2 in there. It'd be some Dagwood-esque sandwich. Now call it the Tasty Hasty. That would be my sandwich. That's the flagship sandwich. Yeah. Everything else, you'd have your standard affair or whatever. But there'd be a couple of different like oddball options that you can't really get at other sub shops just to really stand out. And I wouldn't necessarily be like an Italian sub shop or like a barbecue, which you don't really have barbecue sub shops, but I'm not like a barbecue sandwich joint. I'm not really an Italian sub. It'd just literally be a sub shop that does just the most random stuff. That might not sound like the best business plan, but like it would be low key, right? Like we wouldn't be doing anything wildly zany, right? I think that would be fun to just own a business. But I also work in the food service industry now in management, and it's kind of a nightmare most of the time. So I'm not in a hurry to make that dream a reality. It's not my dream job either. It's just a fact that I've been in the food service industry for so long that I do have an idea of like how to run the business, right? I have an idea of how all of that works. So part of me is like, yeah, I could start my own shop. I could start my own restaurant. I could do that. It would be a headache and a nightmare, but I'd be the business owner. So like it'd be like me building my PC, right? It'd be me building my baby. But I'm not in a hurry to do that at the moment. In terms of job though, dream job, it would have nothing to do with the food service industry. And I'm not picky though. I want something that challenges my creativity in some way, and something that utilizes the skills that I haven't been able to exercise at my current full-time job. And we talked about that a little bit. I've got this other position that I've taken on. I told you I have 2 jobs now, and I have a position where I get to kind of do that. I kind of get to work in social media, in marketing, in writing things, for like posting things, and for flexing creatively how to create media in some way. I like the creative side, right? I don't want to go into crazy more detail on that right now because I'm still like sort of sinking myself into it. So I don't want to describe it poorly, and I don't want to like get like all like. I'll have a better job description eventually. I'm just kind of getting my toes dipped into a new job right now, but that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, is something in terms of a dream job, something that challenges me in a creative way and allows me to use the skills that I actually find fun to use, which includes like writing things. It includes like editing things, in terms of editing documents, editing video, because I've spent so long doing video too. Like creating things that people get to see, things that will exist, like that kind of thing. I do really want to also, in terms of dream job, I do really like the idea of being my own boss as a dream job. So in the future, as my own boss, I don't know if I would want to one day have a company, like found a company that does these kinds of things, or if literally, and I've wanted to do this all my life, if one day my dream job is to literally become an author and actually just start writing like fiction and stuff. I think that would be really fun. I don't know if that's the dream job or if that's just a bucket list, not even bucket list, like, but like just bucket list type thing to do. I want to write a book or something. And actually recently, And you'll hear it all about it if you're listening to Profoundish, my other podcast with Alex. Episode 60, it's coming up. I don't think it's out yet by the time this podcast comes out, so stay tuned and look forward to that. Episode 60, our Halloween special on Profoundish. We're writing, this is the inside scoop, we're writing spooky camp story, like spooky campfire stories to tell each other, little spooky little short stories for each other, one apiece. And well, we already have. Actually, we've already recorded it. It's shot, recorded, and ready to roll basically for that week. And so I wrote my piece. I wrote my short story, my short scary story, and that was really fun to do. And as I wrote it, I kind of came up with more concepts and idea on how to expand it. Because it was for the podcast, they had to be really short because we were reading them to each other, right? So like they had to be really short to fit into our format. But as I was writing mine, I'm like, oh, I could see how I could expand this to be a much longer, bigger story, still within the realm of short story. I don't know that my concept is big enough to be a novel by itself, but you could stick it in like, I don't know, a collection of short stories if I made like several of them, or even just keep it as a short story, a standalone short story, something like that. But the point is, I really want to go back to, and I haven't done it yet because I've been too busy, I want to go back and revisit that piece I wrote for the podcast and expand on it further, to create like different points of view, to expand on the characters a little bit more, to flesh out the universe that my story took place in a little bit. I feel like I could expand it probably 5 times longer than it is. I think it was, we told each other what our word counts were. I don't remember what it was. It's a short story. It's like 1,600 words, right? And I feel like I could expand that by like 3 or 5 times. I think it could be a 5,000 to like 8,000 word story, which typically like a novel, like if you write a novel, you're looking at like that 40-ish thousand word target roughly. I think that's the NaNoWriMo. If you're familiar with NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month, which is November. Oh, I think, hang on. I forget about this every single year. NaNoWriMo, I think is November. I always forget about this every year, so I like never participate because by the time I remember it exists, the month is halfway over. Hang on, is that in November? Okay, I know they do. What is NaNoWriMo? Come on, tell me, darn! I'm googling NaNoWriMo. It's just I don't want the about. When do you do it? Hang on, let me back up. I'm trying to scan and hang on. NaNoWriMo when? Held annually during the month of November. Thank you. Christ, that took far too long to do. I just typed in NaNoWriMo, went to the website, and it was just a bunch of stuff about people's works, about us, our story, all that stuff. I'm like, when is it though? When? So I went back and I Googled NaNoWriMo when. I don't write full. This used to be a thing when I was younger. I definitely wrote full-on sentences, like full questions into like browsers to get questions answered. I think this comes from like the Ask Jeeves era, right? Like back, you guys remember Ask Jeeves? That was a browser that you could ask like questions on or whatever and try to get them answered, but it was just a browser, right? Or not a browser, I'm sorry, a search engine. But anyway, I used to ask questions, but now I will literally just the main word of the thing I'm looking for and then like subwords. So like not when is NaNoWriMo, just NaNoWriMo when. Or like if I need to like define a word, sometimes it's just that word and then define that word or whatever. Not like what does this mean or what, I don't know. Maybe everyone does that, but I think it's funny. Anyway, that's coming up in November is my point. So maybe side tangent, screw it. Maybe I'll write a novel this year. I have a lot going on to keep me very busy. So, like I said, I took on a new job. And I'm usually just busy with other stuff anyway. Like I try to keep my YouTube together, my podcast together. I've got a lot going on to keep me busy, but maybe because that was just so fun, and I just did that little short piece for October. Maybe we go straightforward. Maybe we do that this year. I would love to be able to update you guys on that and say, hey, I wrote a book in a month. Now that doesn't mean I'd immediately release it. Like whatever the heck I write will have to be like edited. Definitely. I will say, I need to circle back. I said like 40,000 words. NaNoWriMo I'm going to read this to you. NaNoWriMo is a month-long writing challenge that takes place every November. Participants commit to writing a 50,000 word novel during the 30 days of November. The focus is on quantity, not quality, with the goal of overcoming writer's block, perfectionism, and procrastination to produce a rough draft of a novel. So yeah, like a novel is like 50-ish thousand words. Hang on. I'm going to Google here. Average novel length. I spelled novel very wrong. We're not going to question that. A typical novel is about 80,000 words long. That's pretty long, but maybe anywhere between 60 to 100,000 words. Anything under 50,000 words is generally considered a novella. And anything over 110,000 words is usually considered too long, especially for a first novel. Yeah, that's when you're starting to get into like those really grand like epics that like Tolkien would write or Robert Jordan would write or something like that, when you're talking about like just these massive tomes of a book. But I guess they say the average is like 80,000 words, under 50 is like a novella. But I mean, for the average person, no one really talks about novellas. I mean, you would just say it's a short novel. Like, especially if you were writing like YA, like if you were writing young adult fiction or something like that, you don't have to be writing these insanely long things. But that's good to know. That's good to know. People also ask, how many words in a 300-page novel? Like a 300-page novel is pretty good for a novel. That's the 82,000 words on average. Okay. So if you're writing like a 200-page novel, it's like 60,000 words. So yeah, if you write like a 50,000 word thing, you're probably looking at like, what, a difference, like 150 pages, something like that. That's pretty good. It's not bad. It's short, but I mean, you can obviously go beyond 50,000, but the whole idea is you do it in a month, which is insane. Anyway, going back to the ideal dream job, I don't know what my dream job is, but I definitely want to do things that stretch my creativity. My dream job has to be something that stretches my creativity in some way. And I think I want to write a book. That sounds fun. All right, that's my 3 topics for a Hasty podcast today. I won't take up too much more of your time. What were your answers to all of these things? Let me know wherever you can find me. I'm not going to tell you where you can find me. I'm just going to say good luck. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, bye.